Hi everyone, this is Korosh Erfani. Today is Thursday, November 27th, 2025, and we are going to discuss this very interesting subject of military-industrial complex and its relationships with Israel. So, as you know, the United States has some 240 years of history as such. Of course, during this time, we have the years during which there was not really any war, we can say. It's just 16 years. For 224 years, the United States was waging somehow a domestic or foreign war somewhere. So it's just 6 to 7% of its history without war, and otherwise 94% of time waging a war, civil war, or of course external wars. So this makes a kind of institutional part of the United States for the military actions and for the military structure. So that's interesting because this was so important that in 1961, President Eisenhower decided to put this point in his statement of farewell, saying that pay attention to this military-industrial complex. He was pointing to all the network that is working in order to push the United States toward more and more militarization. And of course, it was a serious danger and risk for American democracy and for the American future. And that's why President Eisenhower was worried about that and wanted to give to the American nation a warning, a serious warning. But what happened after this serious and important announcement was that effectively the United States started to go in this direction, right? And that's why we can consider President Jimmy Carter as the last president who was not really under influence of this complex, right? From 1981, with the election of President Reagan, we can see how effectively this complex start to dominate the government. I am talking about the executive, and then later through its lobby, the legislative, of course, and in such a way that at the peak of the Reagan's presidency, we get to something like 6 to 7% of the total government budget. The U.S. economy, the GDP, 6 to 7% of the U.S. GDP dedicated to the military industry. And this is huge. So I am going to show you effectively a chart that illustrates that. But don't forget that from the moment we started to have this domination of the military-industrial complex over the American politics, we can see a parallel, because many interpretations try to give us the idea about the economic and financial benefits of that for the big companies. And they are naming Lockheed Martin, Northrop, Boeing as the huge companies who are getting billions and billions thanks to this increasing trend of budget for defense. But we should be realistic. It's not only question of money. And the warning of the President Eisenhower was not really to say that, pay attention that they are making a huge amount of money. No, he was worried about democracy. He was worried about the future of the institutionalized character of the American democracy, and that's why he was warning us. So that's why, beside the financial aspect, we must see something else, which is parallel with that, the increasing power of the Zionist lobby in the United States. And concretely, I am talking about the AIPAC, right, as the most influential lobby in the United States. And if you see, you can make a very interesting parallel, which means alongside of an increase in the budget of defense, you have more and more money spending by the AIPAC in order to get control of the Congress, in such a way that the budget of AIPAC was a few $100,000, in 70s, and right now we are talking about $100 million for each electoral cycle. It's not only for a year. As soon as there is an election, midterm election, for example, immediately they put millions and millions in order to send to Congress only and only those who are in favor of Israel and under order of the Zionists. So if we want to understand the role of the military-industrial complex in the United States, we cannot understand this without having a serious deep look into what AIPAC is doing. And from that moment you draw this parallel, you can see that both of them are going in the same direction, and one part of the budget for the defense, the U.S. Department of Defense is actually for the military machine of the Zionist entity, Israel. So which means that as soon as you have this increasing trend of budget for the defense in the United States, for the Pentagon concretely, you have the same trend for the Israeli army, right? The money that is pouring effectively to Israel through the production of weaponry, ammunition, technology, support, and so on, from the American taxpayers' money, to Israel. So that's why, if we want to know why effectively this complex could dominate American politics and American economy, we should understand the real reason of that, which is the domination of the Zionists over this complex, and through that over Congress and over the executive. And that's why we can talk about a gradual, incremental seizure of power in the United States, which means that this complex is representing something, is representing something that is much more worse and much more damaging to the American democracy than itself. There's the financial aspect of that. So you can see that during the Reagan period, we get a peak. Okay, let me show you this chart that is illustrated it. So starting with the Korean War, in 1950, and afterward, you can see that we have effectively little variation. For the Vietnam War, there is an increase, and suddenly we have a decrease, a kind of stability this during the Carter's presidency. And from this moment here, where you can see effectively a sharp increase of the defense budget, it's a matter of who the first third of Reagan's presidency. And this is the peak, where it's a matter of between 6 to 7% of the US GDP dedicated to this complex, this industrial military complex. From there, you can see a kind of decrease, right? That's the arrival of Bill Clinton for the George Bush. Also, we have that, even though there was the Iraq War, which I am going to explain what was the role of that. And during Clinton, you have a little decrease of this budget. Don't forget that the first Persian Gulf War against Iraq after the invasion of Kuwait was effectively a very good opportunity for this complex to establish something, because we shouldn't forget that that was simultaneous with the collapse of the Union Soviet, right? And the United States became de facto the most powerful country in the world, militarily speaking. And that was an opportunity to justify that the United States must remain in this position thanks to its, firepower, thanks to its military force. And that's why it was very good reasoning to justify effectively billions and billions of money for Pentagon at that time. The reason for which we cannot see a continuation of the increase in the spending is because of the economic crisis. The economic crisis that cost the second term presidency for George Bush and gave effectively the power to Democrats and to Bill Clinton. So as Clinton came to power with the promise of some social changes, we can say, economic and social changes, of course, he couldn't really dedicate more money to the Pentagon. But we can see how they started to suffer. I am talking about the complex, industrial military complex, to suffer and looking for an opportunity to change everything. And the opportunity came with the victory of George W. Bush, Bush Jr. And from that moment, we can see again a kind of a new horizon for this complex, to get everything up. And from the moment from here exactly, you see, in 2001 with the 9/11, we have this increasing trend that goes, that continues even during Obama's, the first term of Obama's presidency, which means that the United States had been engaged so profoundly in a new strategic direction that even Obama couldn't change that for at least 4 to 6 years. So imagine that 9/11 was one of the points in which we can see this combinatory character of this complex, military industrial complex with the AIPAC lobby, right? Because we know the role of the Zionist lobby, the Zionist network, we can say. We know the role of the Mossad in 9/11. So the 9/11 was effectively the huge historic help of the Zionist lobby to this complex, right, to the industrial military complex. So that's why from that moment, this complex became completely in the service of the Israelis' interests. This is how it worked, guys. And that's the reason for which you can see that trillion and trillion of dollars have been effectively injected to the complex. But for what? The interesting point is to see that all the wars that had been waged after 9/11 were somehow and to some extent against the countries that were considered before as the arch enemies of Israel, starting by Iraq. Afghanistan was not really the main target. Iraq was. And thanks to the second Persian Gulf War and the invasion of Iraq, Israel could get rid of one of the most serious and determined enemy of Israel, which was Saddam Hussein of Iraq. So just think about that. We have then the intervention of the United States in a lot of countries in the region. Okay, and don't forget that during that time, trillion and trillion of dollars are spending, going for the industrial military complex. But for the benefit of who? For the benefit of Israel, that is getting rid of its enemies one after another. Intervention in Iraq, in Pakistan, intervention in Yemen, in Somalia, in Libya, in Syria. So all of these only and only for the benefit of Israel, because these were not really for any interest of the United States. Only and only financial and political damage for the United States. Of course, a lot of money for the companies that were making, a huge operation over there. I am not only talking about those who were classically like the Lockheed Martin or Northrop, but also the new one like Halliburton, like Blackwater, that became effectively the military services, if you want, and making money. So that's why this complicity of the industrial military complex and the Zionist lobby, the AIPAC, and Israel, is obvious from the we can say from the 9/11 and afterward. Okay, and that's why there is a very interesting parallel. Look at the budget of the Pentagon during these years, from 2000 with $281 billion, increasing till right now with almost, this is a incomplete number, because after that number, President Trump asked for $150 billion complementary package. And right now, the budget for the 2025 is around $1 trillion. So you see the increasing trend, and essentially from 9/11 and afterward, with doubling during 4 or 5 years, and very interesting. And another one is this one, which is the aid, the financial military aid of the United States for Israel. Same trend, same exact trend, right? More and more money for Israel coming from the budget of, don't forget that this money is a portion of the Pentagon budget, right? So they are making money, of course, but they are giving a portion to Israel, which makes the military force of Israel the most powerful army in the region, and it can effectively follow the strategic design or the strategic plan of Israel, which is to create effectively the greater Israel. But don't forget that. We are talking about the United States of not only George Bush, and then we can see that they put effectively McCain against Obama in order to make him win, maybe, because McCain was one of the warmonger and one of the agents of this complex. We are talking about industrial military complex. He was one of the most crucial agents of this complex for decades. He was the one who triggered effectively the current war between Russia and Ukraine by organizing everything in Ukraine in 2014 so that the war can start over there. So we see that this complex tries to have several, niche for getting more and more order from the Pentagon. We have Russia with everything that's happening over there right now from 2014 till now. We have the South Asia with China and Taiwan, of course. Right now we have the issue of the Venezuela. We have, of course, as at the crosshairs of everything, we have the Middle East and the plan that Israel is preparing for the involvement of the United States in an all-out war in the region, in the Middle East. So we are talking about $1 trillion that have been injected into this complex, and Israel is getting one part, but it's not only that. It's not a matter of $3-4 billion per year. A great part of what had been injected in Pentagon had been used in service of Israel's interests, which means that if you take the case of Iraq, only the case of this country, the war from 2003 with the invasion of Iraq and afterward, cost something like $5 to $7 trillion for the United States. So $5 to $7 trillion business for industrial military complex, and of course for the benefit of Israel. Same thing for Yemen, same thing for Syria, same thing later for Iran, So that's why this complicity is much more dangerous than what President Eisenhower was warning about, because he talked about the fact that this complex can lobby for, in the Congress and push the foreign policy of the United States toward the things that are not really genuine and for the national interest of the United States. But we can see now that he was not really aware about the influence of the Zionist lobby in the United States. Right? This is something that came later, and we can see now the danger that Eisenhower was warning about is double, and is maybe much more threatening for the future of the whole United States. I am talking about the economy, because talking about the economy, look at this. We are in the brink of one of the worst period, one of the worst crises that can trigger in the United States. Look at the deficit, the budget deficit of the United States just during October 2025. So we are getting to the record that are at the same level that at the peak of the COVID pandemic, So both of them are Trump, but the first one was justified by the COVID pandemic and its consequences. But here is a matter of the, glorious and golden age. Why we have such a deficit? Why? Because the United States started effectively to show the serious signs of recession. And imagine that behind this very beautiful narrative regarding trillions and trillions of dollars that are pouring in the United States, the people don't know where to put the money exactly, decreasing the price, and all of this propaganda that the Zionists in the White House are organizing in order to give to President Trump the impression that everything is going well, everything is fine, but it's not really. So the ultimate idea is that this machine we are talking about the military industrial complex plus Zionist lobby. So don't forget that now we are, on the whole, a new entity. It's not exactly the same thing, even though we can talk about at face value the budget of Pentagon, but behind that there is a very intertwined, complex entity of industrial military machine, and here the huge Zionist lobby combined with each other in order to do what? This is the conclusion of my presentation. The ultimate goal is how we can take everything that is possible from the United States and inject it into Israel. And I am talking about this channel, okay? This channel of this complex. How we can put as much as possible, because we are talking about 25 to 30% of the whole US government budget, okay? Just dedicated to this military machine. How we can use this machine for the benefits of Israel and for the disadvantage of the American nation. That's the idea of the Zionist, And I am telling you, sacrificing the United States for the benefit of the plan that is called Greater Israel is the ultimate goal of the Zionists in the United States. Which means that to them it's not really important about all these warnings that are coming about the United States economy, deficit, and a huge surplus of debt, something like $2 trillion that had been predicted for 2026. 2 trillion more national debt, which means 38 trillion will get to $40 trillion in 2026. But for the Zionists, it's not important, and even it's necessary. Why? Because a huge part of that is dedicated, is in the service of the plan of Israel to create effectively the Greater Israel. How? By waging a huge regional all-out war in the Middle East. This is the plan of Israel. And don't forget that Israel is in more or less in the same situation. I will dedicate a future video to the fact that Israel is on the brink of a kind of implosion, right? Don't forget that there is no really any external force that can destroy Israel. Israel is a self-destroying entity. So that's why we are talking about an implosion. I will explain it in a future video. But don't forget, in order to avoid effectively to face this reality that everything is going to bring down Israel, Israel wants to create the biggest war in the 21st century, the greatest offensive attack against Iran, and of course all the proxy, all the other countries that it sees as the Iran's allies. So that's why we should wait for a huge war over there, and don't forget that this is not a war that Israel can wage. This is the war that America, the United States of America, will wage for Israel. And everything that's happening right now through this explanation of what's going on for this industrial military complex, we can see that everything is set in such a way that we can have a kind of obligation, let's say, no choice situation for President Trump to be involved in this war against Iran, against Syria, against Yemen, against Iraq, and if necessary, even against Pakistan. This is the plan of Israel. So that's why I think the situation for the American economy will worsen for sure in the coming weeks and months. And then there would be much more red flag, we can say, inside jobs in the United States, putting in question the national security, creating a chaos, a domestic chaos, or a sort of civil war, all organized by the Zionists, I think, in such a way that I predict that there won't be any election in 2026. So the Zionists don't want any political change, you know, in the situation that can thwart their plans, right? That's why they have to avoid effectively the midterm election of November 26 taking place. So that's why we can be sure about the very dark future for the United States, organized by the Zionists in order to assure effectively the long-term, the long-run interests of Israel. So that's why it's extremely necessary and urgent for the American citizens, for the American nation, to be aware about that. And that's why I ask everyone who is watching this video and who is worried about the long-term national interests of the United States and national security of the United States, you know, to put the question in this direction. To think about that, what the Zionist lobby, what the infiltrated people like Stephen Miller are doing, you know, from inside of the American government, the Trump's administration. We should be aware about that, and we should worry about that, because the not only the future of the United States, but by extension, we can say the future of the whole world is at risk because of this foolish and extremely dangerous plan of the Zionist entity for the world. Thank you very much for watching this video. Please share your points of view with me through the comments, and I hope that we can have a kind of, you know, exchange of views through the comments with this video on YouTube. Thank you very much, and see you next week for another weekly talk. Bye-bye.